And we said that the building of the St. Lucia is not just physical, okay? But it's about the political process of democracy and encouraging people to be able to participate in the dialogue. So we have trade-offs. If we want to be able to see economic development in this country, if we want to change the plight, it means that there has to be investment. Can we all accept that? Can everybody agree that Vieux Fort is dead? Okay? I think that if there's one thing we're unanimous on, is that Vieux Fort is dead. So the question becomes, how do you now finance that level of investment? So if the government has a situation in which I have $450 million in salaries, I have to pay back $300 million a year. So that's $750 million already committed. $88 million in pensions. And the new hospital is going to cost $55 million. And the budget is about $1.2 billion. Okay? So it means that we have to go into deficit to borrow more money just to pay for the recurrent expenditure of government, far less any new investment. So the government is not in a position to now go and borrow more money to do these investments. So the question becomes, how do we do it? And I've said it in opposition, and I said it early in the time. The government has two things it can leverage. It has land, and it has incentives. And so it's to be able to find partners, whether they are local investors, whether they are regional investors, or whether they're international investors, to give them a deal in which they believe that that the risk that's there is minimized, and that government is participating with them, that goes to the mutual benefit. The developer is able to make money, but at the same time now solutions benefit from a growing economy. It's that growth in that economy that generates the additional tax revenue, which means we don't have to run a deficit anymore, and that we now can start investing ourselves. But we're not there. So I only put out the letter with Robert Ainsworth to speak about the hypocrisy again of the Labour Party. That here we're talking about a man who we're talking about, I think it's 300 or just over 300 acres by where the horse racing track is, Beausejour. You're talking about 90-something acres at Point Sab all the way to Moulachik. And then you're talking about another, I think it's 64 acres in the other area. So you're talking about 500, 600 acres of land. Grand Anse is 1,400. Louvette is the 600s. Marquis, look how many other pieces of land where we have one person owning all that land. In the case of Robert Ainsworth, the government was prepared to allow one man to control close to 4,000 acres of land, including 1,000 acres in the Vieux Fort area. So given the total amount of land space that we have, having one developer, and again, I've repeated to say this, Mr. T.A. King is not going to be the one person by himself making all these investments. He is bringing investors with him. So each part will be controlled, or the investment will be made by different people, including you had Mr. Chin from Trinidad, who's proposing to do a movie town in Vieux Fort. But he's the catalyst. His core investment, which is 1,000 hotel rooms, the horse racing track, and some real estate, is what's now creating that stimulus for other people to want to come. And I'm also hoping now, because all these lands we've spoken about are lands that are controlled by Invest St. Lucia. All the other St. Lucians who have land there, me included, 9,000 square feet, okay, will benefit. People who can't sell land now. If we put up a university park that people now can rent, they can rent their rooms. That now everybody in the household has a job in which now they can fix up their own homes, and that there's going to be a demand now for their own land. That when they go to the bank, the value of the land has gone up, the amount of money that they can mortgage is greater. Everybody stands to benefit. So you cannot take these allegations by the Labour Party, one, which are erroneous, but more importantly, hypocritical. Because they had an opportunity, and they were given a mandate in 1997 of 16-1. In fact, we won this election by about 10,000 votes. I think in 1997 they won by about 11,000 votes. Okay, so two very similar mandates. They were given a mandate which was then followed up by 14-3. And they didn't deliver. the people in the South are, in fact, worse off today than they have ever been in their lives. And that is my mandate. How do I now, in this world environment, and I say this, when Donald Trump says he's going to make America great again, okay? Do you think he's including St. Lucia? We need to control our own destiny. And the way you control your own destiny in today's world is to make sure that you're viable. That is what we got to focus on, which means that we've got a better utilization of the land that we have here, and to be able to empower and improve the productivity of our workforce so that solutions can get higher salaries, earn more money, and that the government now has more taxes to have a world-class education system, affordable quality health care, that regardless of where you live in St. Lucia, the safety is the same. Just because you live in a bourgeois area doesn't mean that it should be any safer than living in Marcia or in Fort Lachaud. It should be the same. That is what this government is fighting for every day. It's for that little man. So when we talk about ching, ching, ching in people's pockets, is to make an impact significant. I'm not going to sit here and say we had 6% economic growth, and I'm not seeing that the welfare of that person on the street, that his life or her life has not gotten better. Because I'm telling you now, I would have failed, and I'll be the first person to say I failed. But as it is right now, every day, that's what we fight for.
As it relates to the construction phases, what guarantee do we have? I mean, knowing our history with the Chinese here, as it relates to the George Outlet Stadium, for example, what guarantee do we have that during the construction phases that the locals are going to get employed?
George Outlet Stadium was the time when China was just coming out of its own. And they had an excessive amount of labor. They were on a huge expansion program themselves. And they gave aid in a very different way. Right? They gave the aid in terms that they gave you a dollar value and that they built the projects. Okay? I don't think that the government of the day made the best choices as to which projects they should have had the Chinese do, because those were not necessarily economical things. So it didn't help in terms of improve the overall capacity of the country. But I forgive everybody that it was early days. We've now seen that in developments around the world that the Chinese construction companies have changed. And they're using much more local counterparts. So in the Bahamas, I think as much as 20 or 30%. Now in Bahamas, there is not a lot of labor that's available. Okay? In Barbados, in Antigua. All right, so those are the projects. The airport was built in Antigua. Go and do your own analysis. Did you hear any uproar that was going on? So that was an old method, and now you have a new methodology. Right? But the fact is, if you're going to get concessionary rates from some countries, right now, there's a trade-off. And that's the trade-off I have to do. Do I pay the full amount of debt, of which I have no space? Okay? Or can I get a country that's prepared to take the $35 that we've put in, give me a very good concessional rate, and then obviously in addition to the airport, I can possibly do another project. And the trade-off becomes I have to use some other labor. And that's our responsibility to be able to manage that process. But I would say to you that we've seen a huge transition over a period of time, and I asked the media to go and do their own research. You know, in the case of Bahama Mar, you know, when the project went belly up, it was the Chinese construction company that put in another $800 million to help finish the project. You know, Davos, which is the international investment forum that takes place, economic investment forum that takes place every year. You go online and look at what the comments of people saying. The president of China went there, and in 10 years you've had a complete reversal of positions. Where 10 years ago the United States of America was articulating for climate change and articulating for free trade. Now you have the United States saying that there is no problem with climate change, and that they want to now renegotiate all these trade agreements. And you had the president of China now saying, we believe in climate change, we believe this is something that we have to address, and also we believe in free trade. So I'm saying to you that China has changed substantially in its global perspective. And I'm interested if the Chinese government will allow the Chinese construction companies to do business in St. Lucia. I welcome that.